This season on Project Runway All-Stars.
Better call the fire marshal, because I'm setting this runway on fire.
Good morning, designers! This is the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. Welcome to the home of the Brooklyn Cyclones. For the first time ever, there will be a naked runway. Please welcome
Vanessa Hudgens, Boy George, Little Big Town,
Deborah Messing,
Brad Goreski, Kesha, and Nina Garcia.
In all my years of Project Runway, I really haven't seen something be pulled together like that.
I really want you to stand your ground and show us who you are.
This girl loves that dress, honey.
Thank you, Miss Isaac.
We're back. Is this a April Fool's joke?
You're so annoying.
I'm doing the best I can.
I want this real bad. You're a liar. You're a snake. I don't care what you believe. I'm gonna take my ass home. I'm done.
That's masterful.
At this stage of the competition, I want people to be taking risks.
Really great job. Loving it.
You're onto something that is amazing here. This is All Stars, darlings.
Happy Monday, everyone. And is there a better way to kick off the week than talking fashion with the man who knows everything there is to know about fashion?
That's right.
That's right. He is like the sage of fashion.
That's right.
So, Mr. Isaac Mizrahi,
Darling.
let's start with a question about the show.
Okay.
What do you think is the biggest difference for a newbie coming on Project Runway versus someone who's obviously been through the cycle before?
Well, I think that probably it's more intense and dramatic the second time you go back because, you know, if you don't win the first time, then I guess you kind of really want to win the second time, or else you probably wouldn't go back. So there's a whole investment of that. And so I imagine that the drama is doubled.
What is the biggest mistake that you see competitors make on the All-Star version?
You know, I'm going to answer that question honestly. I think the big mistake that they make is that they care so much, you know. That's my biggest piece of advice to everybody. Try not to care that much. Care is a bad word. Try not to
Be as invested?
no, because it's but I mean, you need to have fun with it, you know? Like, I find that the more you kind of clench and kind of, you know, apply yourself in that negative, competitive way, the less you do well. You don't do so well. And the best thing to do is like just kind of play it like a game. I think that's the best advice I could give anyone about any endeavor, right? I noticed that they just go, like, if we give them a bit of critique in fun, and we say, oh, you know what's not good about that dress? You know, it looks like the inside of a wig or something, you know? And that's supposed to be funny and also factual. Like, yeah, it looks like a bad lace dress, which looks like the inside of a wig, right? And they don't take it that way. They go all tight and clenchy, you know, and you try to be genteel about it and funny, and then they go back and they get tight about it, you know, and that's not good.
So what is the key to giving constructive criticism? Because I personally love it when you guys are funny and pithy and kind of colorful, but I presumably from what you're saying, that is not what they want to hear or what they hear.
Yeah, well, that was a bad timing on the sip there, but.
And by the way, I always tend to ask questions when someone has a full mouth.
Right,
so
exactly.
that is my
Sorry,
special secret talent in life.
That was like, question asked, okay, I'll take a sip. Well, I have to say, you know, the only reason I'm doing it, the whole show to begin with, is because I love it. And I think it's a great show that chronicles this kind of creative process, right? That said, it's important to really have a dialogue, a critical dialogue about something very close to my heart, you know, which is style and clothing and textiles and women, usually. And it's very important for me to kind of engage in that dialogue with others who do the job, you know? I don't want to aggrandize it, but if you would like take this back a few centuries, you have writers writing about other writers. Well, now they have writers writing about other writers, you know? So it is this kind of important critical dialogue for me. And it's not about sound bites. It's not about pith. They edit it that way. hooray, because it's a fun show to watch. But usually, like, you try to be sensitive about someone who's failed at something, right? So you don't want to be too funny, you know? You have to be, like, amusing and kind of keeping it light. Really, it's the idea of keeping it light.
How much involvement do you have with each of the individual contestants?
None.
You see nothing until they
no.
come out for the big reveal.
Yeah, I mean, well, used to be we knew on the card whose garment was coming down on the runway, right? But this season, they changed the whole thing on us. They kind of left the person's name off the card, so we
That's
didn't know
really
what
cool.
Yeah. It was only, you know, the designers who had a real stylish kind of way about the clothes. We knew, oh, that's Keeney or something, or that.
Yeah, or like Christian Siriano
Yeah,
has his own
exactly.
very specific.
Right.
thing.
And so, like, this season, it was terribly hard, but we have nothing to do with them personally, absolutely nothing, at least while they're competing.
So, and what do you think, what is the first thing you look for when you see a garment up there on that stage? And by the way, you guys, I went to a taping a couple of God, 3 or 4
Yeah.
seasons ago, and it is, I mean, it's full on serious when they do this. Like, it's a proper fashion show.
You have all sorts of, not only that, but you have all sorts of, like, lawyers and, like, bodyguards and stuff, because if anyone breaks the rules, it's bad, you know? So they have to watch every single thing, yeah. And they have people, like, when they exit and enter, right?
It's all
People
hidden. I
taking
remember,
them
yeah, you
off. It's
couldn't see,
crazy.
yeah.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
What is the first thing you look for?
Oh, what's the first thing I look for? You know, I don't know. I like to be surprised. So that's the first thing I look for. Am I bored to death by this thing? You know,
Really?
walking down the runway. Yeah. If I'm not bored to death, I like it. I like it better. Even if it's crap, if I'm not bored, I like it. You know,
And
seriously.
and what about craftsmanship? Does that factor in for you?
Craftsmanship in 24 hours, you know, they have
Yeah, I
no
know,
time
yeah.
to make this
Yeah,
stuff.
that's-
So, I mean, unless it's a gaping, scary mistake that could have been avoided if they had eyes, you know, like, it would have, it's not something I would bring up. Except on the first episode, did you see it? There was this dress that was just impossible, and it was sort of nothing, you know? And I felt so bad for the guy, because I figured, but then by the second episode has aired, yes? It has aired. Oh, yeah. Well, anyway. Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, I was very upset about that. Did you see the first episode? It was like I was sort of really upset by the way he treated this one fabric. Yeah.
And do you, I guess, what is your biggest turn off when you see a garment? Being bored?
Yeah, being bored, because I feel like it's like a slap in the face to the woman. You know, like, to take that pretty girl. I mean, listen, the models are very good on the show. They're very nice looking girls, right? It's not like you get sort of Christy and Naomi or something, or like, you know, Giselle or whoever.
No one gets those.
No
you
one
know,
gets
yeah.
this. Yeah, you have to be really lucky. They're very good looking girls, and then they take them and they make them look worse, you know? And I hate that so much because of something boring, you know, because of boring makeup or boring hair or just the worst shoe in the world. And I know it's not a shoe or hair and makeup challenge, but still, like, as a designer, you have to know that that's a terrible shoe. It just is terrible. And you're doing that terrible thing to this woman who is just begging not to be treated that way. Do you know what I mean?
I mean,
Yeah.
you look at the Rodarte or Marc Jacobs fashion shows from the most recent Fashion Week, and the makeup and hair were key to
Oh,
the
yeah,
looks. The
it's
looks would not have
everything.
worked without the very specific and very different hair and makeup looks that they used.
That's it. And you just think, like, you did that to that girl. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it does go back to boredom. It does go back to, like, oh, you did that to that poor girl. She's so much more exciting than that. She wants an exciting life, and this is what you gave her, you know? Sorry.
Bye-bye.
You have given her a boring life.
What do you make?
Bye-bye. What?
What do
Sorry.
you make of the fashion industry now? I mean, what does it take to succeed in fashion?
Now, gosh, I don't
It's
know.
changed so much.
It really has changed so much. But there's something about it that stays the same, which is that if you can make clothes that move the needle in any particular direction, then you'll get noticed. And if you have this kind of obsessive kind of concentration level about it for as many years as you need to, then you'll get somewhere. And especially if you're good, you know, that doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to have good ideas. you know?
But so much is now written about the crazy cycles and the 8 to 12
I know.
collections you have to have
Oh,
a
I know.
year, and how people just literally, I mean, they become addicted, they burn out, they can't handle it, plus the social media aspect, plus the Insta buying.
Yeah.
I mean, do you, I guess compared to when you were starting out, what have you seen as the biggest shift?
You know, I think for me, the thing that is absurd is the way social media is, the way that it handles, or the way it's kind of changed fashion, because there's never anything new. There's never anything surprising about it, you know? I notice, like, the designers I follow, they literally drape a sleeve and they tweet a picture of the sleeve. And then 2 weeks later, they tweet a picture of the dress that's finished. And I think, why do I care about a sleeve or a dress in process? I want to see the dress at a fashion show, like at the moment when all the dresses are coming out, when there's a moment to actually, a moment, you know, that's going to make me feel something about the movement of some kind of, you know, energy, right? Whereas this is just such a piecemeal thing. It's like always available, so there's nothing exciting about it anymore.
And it's interesting that you say that, because Vanessa Friedman at the Times just wrote a whole article about it, and she interviewed one of the higher ups at Neiman Marcus, who was saying that a woman came in to look at jackets, and he said the jacket had literally just come off the truck, and she was like, "I've seen this before."
Done, finished.
Even though it's the new season, and so. But what's the solution? Is there a solution to that? Or
Well,
is it
I have a
simply
story
how
to
it
tell
is?
you. This is the truth. One of my best friends was working in Paris when I was a kid, when I was 20. And
So last year.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. But he was working there, and it was at the House of Dior on the Avenue Montaigne, right? And this was way before John Galliano. This was a very long time ago. And I was sitting across the street waiting for him to come out of work, having a coffee, and I noticed models come out of the house, and they were wearing these giant kind of like graduation robes. And I was like, how chic that they're doing robes at Dior. You know, you didn't think of that, right? And the photographers followed them, and they set up the lights, and they placed the girls. And then seconds before they were going to take the picture, the robes came off to reveal the fabulous suit and dress that they were actually photographing for Women's Wear Daily as a preview, right? But the paranoia that anyone should see this fabulous thing before this moment of the picture being taken, you know? And then they put the robes back and they bundled the girls back inside, because that was an exclusive picture for Women's Wear Daily that would be coming out in 3 days, when they developed the picture firstly, right? And then, you know, set it on the cover and then printed the cover. You see what I'm saying, right? Absolutely. So there was an actual kind of exciting, manic thing about it, you know? And still to this day, like, people ask me stuff. You know, I made some new coats for the show, for this show that I'm having at the museum.
Yep, at the Jewish Museum.
Yeah, and I am so paranoid. I'm like, yeah, could someone, like, put on a Groucho Marx mask and go pick up the embroidery from wherever the embroidery is, and then take it to the studio, right, and knock 3 times. I really do this kind of thing. You know, I'm very paranoid.
Because you think that it devalues it to have
I
the
think it
instant
devalues it, and I
gratification.
think because I have a new idea about something, I don't want it to leak, because I don't want it to be shown everywhere, you know? I don't know if you saw the movie Unzipped, which is a movie about me, which you should all see. But there's a moment where I'm sort of working on this big Eskimo theme collection, which was my version of an Eskimo. And days before I'm going to show the collection, there's, you know, Jean-Paul Gaultier with his Eskimo collection. It was like the end of my life. I thought I just died, you know? Yeah.
I'm really sorry. Yeah, that's rough.
That's very,
That's
very
really
sad
rough.
and rough. Yeah, exactly. Well,
Stinks.
it stinks, but it was good. It was a good show. And it had nothing to do with his collection, so, yeah.
But I mean, at this point, you know, I guess there's no going back, right? Like, it's just
No, and you know,
the fact that you can have a fashion show and buy the clothes the next day seems kind of
yeah.
I don't
But
know.
it's evolving into something, and we're just watching. You know, we're watching.
How do you think Project Runway has influenced the fashion cycle?
Well, I think it's done wonders for the industry. I think it kind of made it tangible. You know, it demystifies it, because it is nothing more than a creative process, right? And it's brought the idea of fashion into the consciousness, you know.
That it's
on this
attainable,
level.
that this
That's
business
very,
is
very,
attainable.
It's very, very attainable, yes.
So what would be the number one piece of advice that you would, if I told you right now, oh my God, Isaac, I have this collection at home, and or these and I want to, you know, create a line of clogs.
Right.
What would you tell me?
Run. No. What would I tell anybody? I would say that, you know, you have to have fun. If you're not having fun, then don't do it, because it's a long, scary slog, you know? And there's a lot of rejection and a lot of adulation, and you just have to enjoy the process. I mean that, you know? And you can't think of, you know, making $1 jillion or, you know, becoming totally famous. I mean, those are byproducts.
Or the celebrity aspect,
Yeah.
of course.
Is that a good piece of advice?
I think that's a
Seriously?
great advice.
Oh, well,
It's a
thank
great
you. Can I
piece
take
of
a sip
advice.
of my coffee
Yes,
now?
I won't even ask you a question
Thank you.
until
Okay.
you
All right. All right.
until you're done sipping. And then we'll talk about your Jewish museum exhibit, which is pretty major.
Okay, you can ask now. Sorry.
So let's talk about that.
All right.
Tell us about it.
Well, you know, this woman who runs the museum called and said, "Oh, would you do this show?" And, you know, I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. Not merely because I'm way too young for a retrospective, right? So we don't call it a retrospective. We call it a survey, a mid-career survey, right? But also, I'm the worst Jew in the world. So I don't understand how the Jewish Museum could ever possibly want me to do that, you know? But somehow, after a number of interviews with this lady, this wonderful lady, Claudia, I agreed. And, you know, I guess it's 3 years later, it's happening.
Wow,
And
it took that long,
Yeah,
huh?
oh yes.
And how did you curate the collection? I mean, were you
Well-
the world's most annoying perfectionist?
Yeah, and there are 3 curators. You know, there's the actual curator who was hired called Chi Perlman, who's doll. And there's another guy who works at the museum called Jens Hoffman, who's amazing and so cute. And then there's this girl called Kelly Taxter. So there are 3 curators. And then there's Claudia, who's like the major head of the museum. There's 1 million people involved, plus a very, very, very big archive of clothes, you know? And that was kind of a bore at the beginning, going through my own archive. But it began as a bore, but then it became something so fulfilling and weirdly, like, propulsive. Like, the less boring it got, the more exciting it got. It just was like a book that you start that's not so good and then just gets really good. I don't know how that happened, but that's what happened.
And so do you have, like, where do you keep all your archives?
Please, you know, in this place somewhere. I don't even know where it is, but I just know my assistants know where it is, and they know how to get stuff from it. And it's like, it costs a certain amount of money to get stuff. It's
Because everything has to be temperature
Yeah,
controlled and all that boring stuff.
yes.
Yes.
No, I wish. It's all in like vat somewhere. It's someone who has to like go into the vat and forklift it down. And I'm serious.
Really?
Yeah, it's a disaster, but I went once. I went one day as a token. I'm sure there's an assistant watching this who's laughing a lot right now because it's true. I don't even know where it is. I was driven there, and I just showed up, and I went through some things. And
I had this vision of like a luxe closet that you press a button and it just
we wish.
rotates.
I wish. You know what? We should do that. No, it's so many dresses. There's no way you could
There's
do
no
that.
way, yeah.
No way, yeah.
What do you think of, who do you think is the designer today that best encapsulates our time?
Me? What are you talking about?
Aside from you, obviously.
No, I have no idea how to answer that question. I don't really keep up with it.
You don't?
I don't. No. I wish I did. It would be nice if I thought there was one person, but I don't think there is.
How do you follow fashion? On Instagram?
I don't. How do you like that? I really don't.
Actually, I like that.
Yeah,
I think
don't.
you can start to make yourself insane.
You can. I never did. You know, I never did because I see it as something completely else. I see it as something I never saw it as fashion. I never saw it as like trying to make something that would make this woman feel like she was in fashion, you know? Never. I always saw it as making these like really beautiful clothes that were different and that were new and that she might want to buy, but I never kind of thought, oh, prints, oh, florals are big this year. Now I have like a league of designers who work for me, and they work with me, and I moderate, and I consult, and they do, florals that are, that sell, but I don't. I never did. I never read magazines, fashion magazines. I can't. They make me ill. Sorry.
I mean, and personally, just as a woman buying fashion, I buy things that make me feel good. Like,
do you? You're smart. You're smart. If I were a woman buying clothes, I would be like so devastated. I wouldn't know what to believe of these images being thrown out there. It's so weird. It's so weird.
Do you know what line I think is
what
is for me at least
what?
Best encapsulates like chic, comfort.
Tell me, don't
the row.
They're really
they're amazing,
good.
and
I
they have
agree
an
with you.
aesthetic that they follow, and it is the same every season, and
They're
and
adorable.
everything works well together. And for given how tiny the sisters are, it fits every body type.
Yeah, exactly.
And and Band of Outsiders, which sadly went out of business.
Yeah.
That was my favorite.
Band of Outside. I never really saw Band of. I know the row because I have friends who work there, and I like with that. I like it.
Yeah, I think
It's
they do a
very
good job.
plain.
Very plain, which
Yeah.
is because you can make it like I feel like it's plain and it makes you shine as opposed
Yes.
to clothes.
Yeah, that was almost the way I answered that question before about what I look for when I see a dress. If I see dress, I go, ugh, If I see woman in dress, I like it. I like it.
Yeah, I
better,
agree, and on the show
But that's who I am. I'm not into construction. I'm not into giant shoes and big. I'm not into all that. I like to see, interesting clothes on women.
And a woman looking pretty in the clothes.
Yeah,
As opposed to,
Yes.
wow, look at the crazy knitting.
Yeah, exactly.
And the net. Yeah, okay. So let's turn this over to the audience now for a few
Look
questions,
at the
please.
crazy knitting.
Hi, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So today is the anniversary of Andy Warhol's passing, who's one of my icons.
You're
and
kidding. I
style
didn't know
figures.
that.
No, yeah.
Wow.
I think it was 29 or 30 years ago. So I was wondering who you maybe looked up to, what style icon when you were coming up, someone who might have influenced you or you think changed the fashion world, and why, what you like about them.
Fashion world. Well, I'm gonna take it back to where you began with the question, because I used to growing up. Okay, I'm gonna give you a really simple answer. Saint Laurent. I really loved Saint Laurent growing up. I watched him like a god. But I also loved the ballet a lot when I was a kid, and I watched George Balanchine, and when he died, I just went crazy because I loved City Ballet at that time. But I would say Saint Laurent. I'm going to say Yves Saint Laurent.
Yves
not
Saint Laurent, since right now it's Saint Laurent.
Yeah, exactly.
Great question.
Who else? Do you have a question, or are you going to do a solo?
I could do both.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you, I wanted to know, have you reconsidered about doing a plus-size line with a retail store?
A what?
A plus-size line with a retail store?
Oh, I do tons of plus size clothes. At QVC, everything I do is from a 2 to a triple X. So I do lots of plus. And I'm about to launch a big line of clothes at sort of Lord & Taylor and around the country and whatever. And so I think there'll be plus sizes there. I think so.
Yeah, I think that they actually are known for
Yeah,
a gamut,
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question.
Hello. I'd
Hello.
like to know, how have your travels inspired your creations?
What a good question. Why? Do you like to travel? You do, right? They have inspired my collections a lot. And I don't love traveling. I mean, I thought I did, and then I did so much of it that I guess I just burned out on it, But every time I went anywhere, I think it's you know what I think it is about traveling? It's such a threat to your aesthetic sort of sensibility. Just being on a plane is so awful, right? Just the textile that your seat is disgusting, right? Literally disgusting. The air is disgusting. The colors they pick are hideous, right? Tell me.
The security line.
Well, I'm not even getting into that, right? And then they make you take off your shoes, right? But the point is that, I think as a defense, you start thinking of all these really good things, right? And then you get to Spain, or you get to wherever it is you're going, Southeast Asia, and things are so crazily different, and you have this kind of take on things, right? But you know, there are designers out there whose entire careers are like travelogues, right? Like they go places and they design clothes. And they can't work unless they go places and see fabulous, you know, clothes that they've never seen before, like, you know, like lungi or, you know, kaftans or something, you know, like fabulous sort of regional dress. I mean, I've been inspired by regional dress and by travel, but more than that now, and I guess I'm a product of my generation, I am inspired by like some morphed version of that. You know, in Unzipped, I actually said this a long time ago. It's like, I'd rather not go to Australia. I'd rather see like a Flintstones episode that takes place in Australia for some reason, because I think like, for me, it's more interesting, you know? Sorry, but that's where I am now with travel.
I'm sort of with you.
Well, the Flintstones. Does anybody know what that is, the Flintstones?
Of
okay,
course.
wow. Phew, I thought maybe that was a generational divide as well, but not.
And we have time for one more question, please.
Hi. So I've always been interested in fashion design, but the fashion world is a little bit intimidating. How would you break into it? What advice would you give?
Well, I mean, it's not a good place to start. If you're intimidated by a certain industry, it's probably not a great place to start, you know? And so I would advise you to find ways to make yourself feel okay about it, you know? I mean, if you really like the work, then that will prevail. Does that make sense? If you really like designing clothes and making clothes and styling things and whatever, then that will bridge this gap that you feel about the intimidation. Because, you know, I was intimidated too. And luckily, I got a great first job. And it was the most glamorous place in New York, but it was filled with all these very kooky people who I related to, you know? And so that was a great sort of leg up onto the horse. So maybe a job, maybe get a fun job with some kooky people.
And let yourself go. And thank you so much, Isaac.
Thank you.
When,
that was
when
really
can
fun.
when can we watch this?
Oh, Thursday nights at 9
on Lifetime.
On Lifetime, yes.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Yay.